Hey, let's see what we're doing for Wednesday. This should be the 8th of April. You're going to need your blank melodic notation paper, and then we are doing our chord composition classwork together. So that you just are going to be basically getting a completion grade for that. For your blank melodic notation paper, instead of just using only treble clefs, we're actually going to want to turn one treble clef into a bass clef so we can combine those, because our first step today is to remind you of all of the letters of the musical alphabet and where they live on your treble and bass clefs. And yes, you did see this on your classwork from last week, but it's lacking the music notes, so we're going to try and recreate it. And what I've done is I brought it into Noteflight, and I want to highlight just a few different places for you really quickly so that we get these reminders. For our treble clef, our upper pitches, they live towards the top of our musical staff. We have learned the sentences for the lines and for the spaces. And so we know that our lowest line of the treble clef is always going to be letter E. No matter what key you're in, this does not change. And that's going to make the lines create E, G, B, D, and F. The spaces do make the word face, but really this is all because the lowest line is letter E, and then we just follow our musical alphabet on up. So E, F, G. G is always followed by letter A. Make sure you circle back through your alphabet there. A, B, C, D, E, and F. And we can follow our alphabet on up all the way 2 ledger lines up to the C that's living up there. Above the top line is G, 1 ledger line is A, above that ledger line is B, and 2 ledger lines up makes letter C. It's true that there are pitches below the treble clef, and when we go down, we think backwards in the musical alphabet. So what letter comes before E? Letter D. What letter comes before D? Letter C. And here we see, we're looking at the same exact pitch. It's the same on the treble clef and the bass clef. I wish we could show these so that they are connected in the same location. Bass clef, our low notes. Our low notes of the bass clef are always going to start with our lowest line, making our first letter of those sentences that we've learned, our mnemonic devices that help us remember. And we know that our lowest line of the bass clef is always, in every key, letter G. And that's going to make the lines create G, B, D, F, and A. The spaces do make the A, C, E, G of all cows eat grass. And now this letter G, if we walk up with our musical alphabet all the way to middle C, we're going to just remember that after letter G comes letter A, B, C, D, E, F, G, and A, we reach the top line. After A, above the top line, is B. And we're leaving that space. We'll need a ledger line for letter C. 2 ledger lines below is also letter C, way down here. And we walk it up to that lowest line to reach G. It is really crucial for you to know and be familiar with your treble clef pitches and your bass clef pitches, because our musical alphabet is how we write chords accurately. And if you want to know where to write the root of each chord, you need to know these. Going back to our checklist, we are going to work on our chord composition classwork 2, and we're going to work on it at the same time. What I've done is pulled it up into this window, and you can see we have 3 different keys, but it takes until our 3rd and final key for us to be working on both treble and bass. And so today, grab your pencil, try to recreate this paper if you do not have the ability to print. Once again, just make sure you really clearly label which key lives where and which key you're working in. You'll need to make sure that you have your 5 lines for the first 2 keys. And we are focusing on accurate drawing of our Roman numerals below when you're writing this, if you're recreating this, because we are going to need that skill by the end of this week. This is actually although I can pull it up over here and kind of make it work, I've worked on no flight instead this time. So here we have our first key, and although I'm looking at both treble and bass clef here, because I'm going to need them both later for the final key, I have to have them both, but I'm going to completely ignore this bass clef and just leave it blank. So we are in G major, and we are going to be making, on the treble clef, using quarter notes only, the 1 chord, the 4 chord, the 5 chord, and the 1 chord for our first measure. So we want to start on G. We know that this is letter G because our lowest line gives us the E, G, B of the every good boy does fine. So we're going to start stacking, skip, and skip, and they all share the same stem. And it does change stem direction there, but you don't have to. You can have them all be above. And I'm going to label it. This is our 1 chord. After our 1 chord, we are asked for the 4 chord. So let me go ahead and place a root of 1 and just scoot it up. 1, 2, 3, 4. There we go. We're going to skip and label. 4 chord. If our 4 chord is here, our 5 chord starts here. I'm going to need a ledger line for the top pitch because we are on line, top line, ledger line. Let's label it. I know it's a lot easier for me to do this online than for you to write it with a pencil, so pause whenever you want. We're going back to our 1 chord. I'm going to copy and paste. Haha. So for our key of G major, our first measure is complete. Measure 2 was asking first for a 2 chord. So if the root of the 1 chord lives on G, the root of the 2 chord lives on A. Let's make sure we skip and skip to complete the chord. Every chord tone is in a space. And I'll label. There's our 2 chord. We're creating that same 5 chord. Let's bring it on over. We are moving from 5 up to 6. And this is because I've written down what is asked for. So we're right here on our worksheet. 6 chord, skip, and skip. Now we want all of these to be in a space, which means we have to have a ledger line in between these top 2 pitches. And it adds it for me. But if I had to on paper, I would take my pencil and draw that ledger line right between. Let's label our 6 chord, small v and I, and we end on 1. Nice and handy. Let's hear this. In the key of G major, we have recreated 1, 4, 5, 1, 2, 5, 6, and 1. They're all on the treble clef. And it brings us down immediately, and we are ready for the middle of the page. I'm going to go ahead and hover right here so that you can copy this down and double check your work. I'd say that the most important step is knowing which symbols you're being asked for. Don't confuse your 4 with your 6. And from there, we want to make sure that the roots are accurate and that your chords are complete. Chords contain a skip and a skip, so you have to have 3 chord tones per chord. If you've just drawn the roots, your chords are incomplete. That means that if you were playing this on the piano, your thumb would be playing the correct pitch, but your middle finger and your pinky would be missing the notes that they really need to make those chords full and have true harmony. All right, so we're going to consider this complete. We're going to move on to C major. It says bass clef only, whole notes only. We're going to create 1, 2, 4, and 5. So we're going to come down to our bass clef and make a whole note. And in the key of C major, our 1 chord has to start on C. We know that our spaces for the bass clef are the all cows eat grass. So I'm going to use C right there. Let's make it a whole note. We're going to label it immediately as asking for our one chord. And I'm going to skip and stack the chord tones above. If the root is in a space, space, and space. Our one chord is complete for the key of C major. Our next chord is a two chord. So if our one chord was here, our two chord is just one step above. Skip and skip. Let's label it. We are not asked for the three chord. Let's take another look at that. 1, 2, 4. So we're going to go ahead and immediately move from 1 to 2 to 3 to 4. We've reached the second line from the top. Line on the top line, on the ledger line. We do need a ledger line here. That is our 4 chord label. I'm going to add that there. And our 4 chord and our 5 chord are neighbors. So if the 4 chord starts here, the 5 chord starts above it. Make it a whole note. There is a ledger line in between the top 2 chord tones. We have to make sure that we fully skip. There it is. Let's label it. Pause here if you need to. Again, I have a treble clef that's visible for literally no reason. You don't need that. On your paper, you'll want your 5 lines bass clef, key signature for C major, no sharps, no flats. So it's looking like our key signature is kind of gone. And we are going to start on C for the 1 chord, start on D for the 2 chord, start on F for the 4 chord, and start on G for the 5 chord. The reason that we're doing these chords is because they were the ones asked for on your worksheet. It is time for treble and bass combined. What key are we in? We are in F major. Compose the requested chords using half notes on both treble and bass clefs. We are in the key of F major. We have our key signature prepped for us. Sorry for the scooting. And we're going to use half notes for the 1 chord, the 2 chord, the 3 chord, the 4 chord, the 5 chord, the 6 chord, the 7 chord, and back to 1. Let's go ahead and get started in the key of F major. We are using half notes. We're going to start on F and stack, skip, skip. Let's label it. There's our 1 chord. And because you know that I like to start below the bass clef for F so that we don't use ledger lines, I'm going to recreate. All right. Ooh, I did not play the C major. I'll go back at the ending if I remember. These are the first simultaneously played chord. They be played at the same time. I'm going to show you that again. This is the right hand of the piano player, and this is the left hand of the piano player. So our 1 chord moves on to our 2 chord. There's the root of our 2 chord. Down here, there's the root of our 2 chord. They are both starting on the letter G, and we're going to stack the chord tones. Skip, 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 skip. I'm going to go ahead and label my treble clef chord, because we already know that it applies to both of these. They get played at the same time. If our 2 chord is here, our 3 chord is here. Skip and skip. If our 2 chord is here, our 3 chord is here. Skip and skip. What I'm going to do for the rest of them is to create one half note chord that I can just copy and paste. I'm going to use the 4-chord position. So this is my accurate 4 chord. I'm going to lift it for 5. 5 going to 6. 6 going to 7. And 1. Checking out the roots there. Do, re, mi, fa, so, la, ti, and do. All right, we got everything. Although this will look bizarre, I'm actually going to be able to bring it down to the bass clef too. Don't be afraid to take your time on this. Let's see, we want to start just above that 3 chord. So that looks right. Let's label and then we'll listen. 4, 5, 6, 7, and 1 at the end. I think the hardest part about all of this is the ledger line above the pitch that I've made orange. To skip and have all of these chord tones accurate, they all need to be in a space. The top 2 chord tones cannot both be in the same space, so they have to have a line in between that shows that they are not on a line, they are above and below the line, and therefore they're in the space. All right, I'm gonna pause on each of these so you can see your answers. Pause here for G major. Pause here for C major. And pause here for F major. That completes our chord composition classwork 2. You need these answers onto your paper, and you're going to want to submit them as an attachment, as a photo. So here's the fake classroom that I've made. It's a different color, but if you go in to your classwork tab and you view chord composition classwork 2, view that assignment. Here's the paper that you'd want to print. Oh, I have to download it. Okay. And this paper, once printed out, I recommend you take a picture on your phone. If you're wanting to turn it in on your laptop, email that photo to yourself so that you can go into your email and save it onto your computer, probably on your desktop, so you don't lose it in a random folder. Now go to your work. This assignment is assigned to you, and it's time to add your file. And when you add your file, you'll really be adding your photo. So you can select any photo you want. I'll just choose a random photo from the thumbnails for the videos. How about a photo from the future? Once you upload it, it's going to appear right underneath the words your work, and it's going to ask you if you want to turn it in. Now the second way to turn this in, I would recommend printing out your piece of paper and going straight into your classroom if you're using the Google Classroom app. Here's my fake class. In the classwork tab, I can see chord composition, classwork 2. For me to be able to turn it in, I need to swipe up, and then the your work appears just like it is on the screen of the laptop right now. I'm going to add an attachment, and this is the time when I'll want to actually take the photo. It's not so simple to add an attachment that's already in your camera roll. I don't know why, but it's not. So I'm going to add the attachment and use my camera to take the attachment right now. Let me take a photo of this wall. It's lovely. Pretending that's my classwork. AirPods. I'm going to use this photo. It's loading, and the photo is going to appear both in my app, and then it's also going to appear down here underneath the image that I uploaded from the computer, because you can submit 2 pictures at the same time, so that's pretty handy. So it is loading. Yep, I have both of them here on my phone. I'll wait for this one. There it is. It has refreshed. I have a photo and an image from the computer. If I want to click hand in on the laptop, I can. If I want to click turn in on the app, I can. That is how I suggest you turn in your work for this class, particularly something that is as detail-oriented as this. That's everything for today. I know this was a long one, but you do have all of your answers. So be sure to make the most of these videos and use them to double check. Now you don't need an answer key for this classwork, and it's a very low stress situation. Probably the hardest thing is accurately writing those chords in the right spot. But don't worry, stick with it, and I'll see you tomorrow. Bye!